What if I told you that not all popes followed the conventional path? Indeed, the annals of church history are replete with fascinating stories of popes who broke the mold. The papacy, the supreme leadership of the Catholic Church, is often perceived as a position of unimpeachable rectitude and divine guidance. Popes are generally expected to embody the virtues of piety, humility, and wisdom, providing spiritual leadership to millions across the globe. However, the path to the papal throne and the life thereafter hasn't always been so straightforward or saintly. Throughout the centuries, there have been popes who have veered away from the typical path, challenging the norms and expectations associated with the highest ecclesiastical office. From the halls of the Vatican to the streets of Rome, these unconventional popes have left their unique and sometimes controversial marks on church history. So follow with me as we journey through history to meet some of the most unconventional popes the world has ever seen. Our first stop is the 10th century, a time of chaos and disorder, and the reign of Pope John XII, often dubbed the Playboy Pope. Born as Octavianus, he ascended to the papacy at the tender age of 18, a time when most young men were just starting to carve out their paths in life. But Octavianus was no ordinary young man, and his path was far from the straight and narrow. His papal reign was marked by scandal and controversy. His fondness for earthly pleasures was well known, a stark departure from the ascetic lifestyle traditionally associated with the papacy. Wine, women, and song were said to be his constant companions, and his indulgence in these pleasures was legendary. His love for gaming was also a topic of much discussion. He was known to gamble with the pilgrims' offerings, a practice that was obviously frowned upon by many. His defiance of the Church's teachings did not end there. He was also accused of turning the Lateran Palace into a brothel, a claim that further tarnished his reputation. In spite of his scandalous life, or perhaps because of it, Pope John XII has left an indelible mark on papal history. His reign serves as a stark reminder of the human frailties that can sometimes seep into even the most sacred of offices. John XII's life was a stark contrast to the solemnity and piety we associate with the papacy, making him a truly unconventional pope. Fast forward to the 15th century, and we encounter Pope Alexander VI, whose reign was marked by nepotism, corruption, and scandal. Born as Rodrigo Borgia, his ascent to the papacy was anything but orthodox. His insatiable thirst for power led him to manipulate the Church's authority for personal gain, a practice that would define his tenure. As Pope, Alexander VI was known for his scandalous personal life. He openly acknowledged his children, breaking a long-standing tradition of celibacy among clergy. His children were not merely the product of illicit relationships, but were active participants in his political machinations. His son, Cesare Borgia, was made a cardinal at the age of 18, a clear instance of nepotism. But perhaps the most shocking aspect of his papacy was his unabashed corruption. He was infamous for selling church offices and indulgences, essentially turning the Vatican into a marketplace. This blatant misuse of church resources and power was not just morally reprehensible, it was a direct challenge to the spiritual authority of the Church. The reign of Alexander VI was a dark chapter in the history of the papacy. His blatant disregard for the Church's moral and spiritual guidelines, and his exploitation of its power for personal gain, left a stain on the sacred institution. Alexander VI's papacy was so steeped in scandal and corruption that it became a significant catalyst for the Protestant Reformation. Our next stop is the early 16th century, with Pope Leo X, whose extravagant lifestyle and excessive spending earned him the title of the Spendthrift Pope. Born into the wealthy Medici family, Leo X was no stranger to opulence. Once he ascended the papal throne, he brought his love for luxury with him. Leo X had a particular penchant for art and culture, pouring vast sums into their patronage. His court was a hub for Renaissance artists, with the likes of Raphael and Michelangelo benefiting from his generous patronage. However, his lavish lifestyle and cultural investments took a toll on the Vatican's coffers. To replenish the Church's finances, Leo X resorted to selling indulgences, a controversial practice that essentially allowed people to buy their way out of sin. This sparked Martin Luther's protest, leading to the Protestant Reformation. Leo X's financial extravagance was a far cry from the frugality expected of the papacy, marking another unconventional chapter in papal history. Let's take a detour to the 11th century, where we find Pope Benedict IX, the only man to have been pope more than once, and the only one who sold the papacy. Benedict IX was unique in many ways, not least because he ascended to the papal throne at an incredibly young age. But his youth did not bring a fresh perspective or invigorating energy to the papacy. Quite the contrary, his reign was marred by an almost unmatched scandal and controversy. Benedict IX's personal life was far from exemplary. Rumors swirled of unspeakable acts, including allegations of murder and adultery. His questionable behavior and blatant disregard for the sanctity of his position shocked the church and the public alike. But perhaps the most shocking act of his papacy was his decision to sell the papacy. Yes, you heard that right. In an unprecedented move, Benedict IX sold his position to his godfather, causing a period of confusion and turmoil within the church. Benedict IX's papacy was a whirlwind of scandal and controversy, making him one of the most unconventional popes in history. His actions serve as another reminder that the papacy, like any other position of power, is not immune to the frailties and failings of human nature. No need for summary. These popes are among the biggest offenders against the spirit of their office and the Lord. But if you're interested in more, let me know in the comments, and subscribe while you're at it. Cheers.